Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Shine, where we are shifting habits, inspiring nutritional empowerment. Here, we discuss all things spirit, soul, and body. I am Cynthia Mobley Howell, founder of How Well Are You? And thank you so much for checking us out today for this episode. This episode is probably going to be a little bit longer than usual. For one reason, is because I really needed to journal this experience, but just in case I don't feel like taking the time to journal it, I have it recorded and I can go back and watch the recording if I need to. Today, we're going to be talking about navigating travel delays, my journey to patience and acceptance. I wasn't here last week because I was traveling. And so I wanted to make sure and come back so that we can maintain some type of consistency. I am your lifestyle transformer. And when I say lifestyle transformer, again, because we discuss all things spirit, soul, and body, that those three areas are what we are transforming because those three areas are what I believe encompasses our entire being. We cannot have one of those areas flourishing and another one is not. They all should be flourishing at the same time. They should all be synchronized so that we can live optimally. And I don't know about anybody else, but do you want to live optimally? That's the question. And if you want to live optimally, if you believe that you can live optimally, if you believe that everything concerning you can be in alignment, go ahead and type that in the comments. I believe that my spirit, soul, and body needs to be and can be in alignment. So that being said, again, I want to talk about my travel experience on last week or week before last and the lessons that I learned. Now, I've been flying since the late 70s. And when I tell you all, and I am not exaggerating, when I tell you all that this was the worst experience that I have ever had during a flying experience, it is the worst. But y'all, I'm here to tell you that I passed the test pretty much with flying colors. I probably got a 98 because 2% of that was when I almost lost it because I just had it up to here, but I didn't give in to what I was feeling. So my travel experience started on Friday, July 19th, as I was heading to Panama City, Florida, to the homegoing celebration of a childhood friend of mine. I live in Central Florida, and the nearest airport to me is in Orlando, which is about 30 miles from where I live. So I usually take an Uber, and that's what I did. Now, mind you, my flight was at was to depart at 6:02, on Friday morning. Thursday evening, I decided to go to bed early because I never do when I'm flying, and most of us don't. It's like you just can't. You're doing stuff, or I don't know, you're just wired up and you just can't go to sleep. So I decided to drink some chamomile tea, go to bed early, and wake up early since, again, it's a commute to the airport. And I usually try to give myself at least an hour and a half to get dressed. So if my flight was departing at six-ish, that means I needed to be at the airport around 4. So that meant I need to be up around 1-ish because my Uber was reserved for like 2:30-ish or 3 or something like that. 3. Yeah, for 3:30, I believe. Anyway, you get it. So the first thing that happened was after I drank my tea, it's around 7 o'clock. I go to sleep. I must have taken about a 15 to 20-minute power nap. Woke up, could not go back to sleep. When I tell y'all I could not go back to sleep, could not go back to sleep. Well, so much for that. So much for thinking that I was going to get a good night's sleep and wake up and have, be well rested to catch my flight. Well, again, I didn't. I finally got to sleep around 1-ish. So I had to get right back up and I set my alarm. I usually don't like alarms because they interrupt my sleep. I just like to wake up naturally. But I didn't want to take a chance of missing my flight. So I did set my alarm. When it went off, it really didn't bother me this time. Normally, when I have to set an alarm, it just absolutely annoys me. But this time it didn't. Popped up, did what I needed to do, got dressed. I guess the saga started with me not being able to sleep like I wanted to. And then the next thing that happened was I happened to look at my Uber app and realize that my Uber was here. Now, normally I will, look at my app occasionally just to track it, to make sure that, they're not waiting. This time, something happened. I can't remember what happened. Something happened that I didn't look at my app. And I happened to look at my app and it was like the Uber was here. So I hurried up. I had everything. I was ready. I was ready to roll out the door, but it just threw me off because I didn't know they were out there. So I come out the house and I was like, "How long have you been out here?" And he was like, "Oh, I actually just pulled up." I'm like, "Okay, cool, good." He was like, "Oh, I would have called you if I had, waited 5 minutes or whatever." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So the first thing that happened was he was a talker. Now it's like 3:30 in the morning. I'm usually a talker, but at 3:30 in the morning, you're probably not, I'm probably not going to be talking too much unless somebody is talking to me. When I tell you dude was a talker, he was a talker. I mean, he was just talking nonstop. And I'm thinking, uh, why are you talking? It's 3:30 in the morning. He wouldn't shut up, y'all. I wanted to say, do you have an off button? OFF. But anyway, I chuckled a little bit because since I'm a talker, and there were times back in the day before I got myself together that I would talk somebody's ear off. And I know a lot of times people probably wanted to say, would you, could you please just turn it off? Can you find the off button, honey? So I was like, okay, Cynthia, have grace. But what was so interesting about this dude is, okay, he was a talker. Cool with that. He would ask me a question, and before I could answer, he would start talking. So I just hushed. I'm like, you know what? I don't know what the problem is. Well, it was not a problem. He was just a talker. I mean, it was good conversation, mind you. It wasn't boring. We talked about sports. I'm a Steeler fan. For those of you who do not know, I am a Steeler fan. Your girl bleeds black and gold. Yeah, baby, Steeler Nation. But anyway, we talked about a lot. We talked about travel and apparently he's a world traveler and he was giving me some tips on if I ever decided to travel to Hawaii because I think I said Hawaii was like one of my on my bucket list and he was like, "Oh, well, let me tell you, if you travel to Hawaii, do this, don't do this, da 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 da." So the bulk of our conversation was about that. And then, like I said, I mentioned something about being a Steeler fan. Then he started telling me about his best friend who's a Steeler fan, and he just took the conversation and he ran. Okay, cool. Got to the airport. Everything is good. What was interesting when I got to the airport, I didn't know what to do with myself because of all of my years of flying, I have never flown with just a carry on. Mind you, I usually fly Southwest, and you can usually check 2 bags for free and a carry on and a personal item. I usually check 2 bags, and they are loaded. I take a carry on, and it is loaded. And I usually have my backpack as my personal item, which is loaded. Y'all, I only had a carry on and my backpack. I didn't know what to do with myself. Girl, what? And what inspired me, even though it was supposed to be a short trip, I was supposed to leave Friday and return Tuesday, but I'll tell y'all about that later. Um, Still, usually I just need everything I need. I do. And I don't care. I usually, do what I gotta do. And I also was flying American Airlines this time, which is my first time flying American Airlines. Woo, I was about to give them the big red X, but they redeemed themselves. They redeemed themselves. So anyway, I only had a carry-on, which means when I went into the airport, I could go straight to security. I didn't know how to act. I felt strange, like something is missing, something is wrong. Got to security. That I can say was seamless. I mean, I flew right through security, no issues, no problems. Get to my gate, and I'm, like two hours early, and I'm just chilling, just waiting. About, I would say about 20 to 30 minutes before it was time for us to begin boarding, the person, forgot what you call them, that works at the desk, announces that the flight was grounded due to a global situation. And many of you probably know on that day, there was a global situation with Microsoft, IT. I forgot what word it is they use, but flights were grounded. And American Airline especially was affected. I'm like, okay. So when she said grounded, I assumed we weren't going anywhere time soon. And everyone else who was in my area who was traveling did not seem to be bothered. So I decided I shouldn't be bothered. If they're not bothered, I'm not going to be bothered. So I wasn't bothered. So I sat there and relaxed and just waited. I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'll board when I board, and I guess I'll be where I'm going when I get to where I'm going. Amazingly, about 15 minutes later, she came back and said we could board. Now, mind you, we were going to be boarding later than we would have. Therefore, the flight was delayed. No problem. So, we board, no issues. So, as we're preparing, and the flight was great, as we're preparing to land, the flight attendant comes on and says that because we were delayed, that if certain people did not deboard the plane when we arrived first, that they weren't going to make their connection. I happen to be one of those people. So she called the flight and the destination and called our names and asked us to raise our hands. And she said that if you saw someone raise their hand, please allow them to get off the flight before you when we land. No problem. I'm good. I'm cool. I'm like, everything is good. We get off the flight, and boy, here I am hustling it. So I'm in Miami. Connection. I'm making my connection in Miami, mind you. So I'm making my connection in Miami, and my final destination was going to be Tallahassee, Florida. So y'all, I'm running through the airport. I'm walking, I'm running. Now I'm running. I say I'm running through the airport like OJ, right? So I'm running and I'm like, I'm good. Everything is good. I mean, it seems like it was that gate from where we landed, from where we unboarded or deboarded the plane. The next gate had to be at least a mile. I'm not lying. It had to be a mile. And I was running because I wanted to make my flight. But also in the back of my mind from past experiences, I'm like, well, they'll hold it if they'll call my name one last time, or they'll call my name, and they know that there was a delay and it's no fault of my own. So they're gonna wait for me to get there, right? So I'm running. I'm running through the airport, like I said, like OJ. I get to my gate and I'm like, I need to board the flight to Tallahassee. And the lady was like, um, she wasn't talking fast enough. And I'm thinking, lady? She's like, well, what time is it leaving? She's like, well, check the monitor and see. And I'm thinking, I don't feel like, can't see. I can't think. So thank God she actually came out from behind the desk and she went to check the monitor for me. In the meantime, she asked the guy at the desk who was sitting near the monitor, she said, can you check to see if the flight to Tallahassee has left? He that flight is gone. I'm like, are you serious? In all of my years of flying, I have never, ever, 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 ever missed a connecting flight. So I didn't even know what to do. I mean, they told me you need to go to the rebooking desk to have your flight rebooked. I'm like, okay, cool. I was like, okay. So I get to the desk, told them what happened, and they were like, okay, so here are your choices. Now, mind you, it is like 8:30 a.m. in the morning. She said, here are your choices. We have a flight leaving at 6 p.m. for Tallahassee, but it is full and you will be on standby. But we can confirm you for 11 p.m. I said, did you say 6 p.m. and 11 p.m.? PM? Like, she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, okay. Well, let's do whatever we need to do. In the meantime, I decided to see if maybe they had, because my final destination was Tallahassee, but I was being picked up in Tallahassee and I would be driven to Panama City, which is where I was headed. So I was like, well, I, I said, okay. So then I thought and I went back. I said, well, do you have anything into Fort Walton or do you have anything directly into Panama City or Pensacola? Anything that I can get on to just get me moving. And she was like, she checked and she's like, no. I'm like, okay. So what I said was, I said, okay, God, this is happening for a reason. I may or may not ever know the reason, but it's happening for a reason. I ended up staying in Miami International Airport for 9 hours. Now, mind you, I know that probably not a big deal to anybody because I know during the pandemic, you had people that were had to stay in airports overnight or maybe 1 or 2 days. I don't know. But for me, never ever having experienced this type of situation, that's a long time. That was a very long time. I stayed in the Miami International Airport for 9 hours. And guess what? I'm going to stop right there because it gets better. But I said this may be longer, but I decided I don't want it to be any longer than it is. So I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to come back with a part two. So remember, I stayed in the Miami International Airport on Friday, July the 19th, 2024, for 9 hours. But everything happens for a reason. And that is why I named this episode Navigating Travel Delays, My Journey to Patience and Acceptance, because I'm here to tell you that God did a thing. Remember now, we talk all things spirit, soul, and body. And during this eventful experience, I dealt with aspects pertaining to the spirit, the soul, and the body. And I will explain later. So make sure you comment, make sure you like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell because you want to be notified when I come back for the next part of this episode. And the saga continues. This is Cynthia Mobley Howell with Shine. We are shifting habits, inspiring nutritional empowerment. And remember, it is your time to shine. Peace and blessings.